essentially, okay, everyone, this is Youth in Power. Also, please give them a round of applause. Give a round of applause for yourself, please. Okay, so these are some of my and Travion's lovely apprentices. We actually shifted our name officially like a week ago from interns to apprentices. So we do follow an apprenticeship model in Youth in Power. We're not just training them to be people entering the workforce. We're not just creating another workforce. We are training community organizers and leaders. And so we have been spending, some of us have been here for a couple years and some of them are new in the last year. But we have crafted a panel discussion for y'all today. This is most, I think if not all of their first time being on a panel. And then when Michaela, right there, she'll wave to everyone. Michaela is my apprentice, oh, they're all my apprentices. But, Michaela was looking up like other youth panel discussions so that we can model this one in a way that makes sense to them and to us. And most of what she found was that there's no panel discussions with young people on them, which is like incredible to me. So how do we model a panel discussion when it's usually adults talking about young people? So we have spent the last few weeks practicing and creating questions, and essentially the point of the panel today is to look over and to give some advice on how we can essentially destigmatize the process of young people joining the environmental justice movement, which it is a process and there are a lot of stigmas. So everything we do at Youth in Power is to normalize the conversation around EJ, and so we are gonna go through some of the questions. All of these young folks have come up with them, and yeah, please turn your attention to Youth in Power. So, here I am again. It's me and Alia. And I am going to start with Ismail. We'll start with Ismail. He's going to introduce himself first.
Hi, I'm Ismail Youssef. I'm 16 years old. I've been a part of Youth in Power since last June. I live in South Minneapolis and I go to Edina High School. Oh, and something interesting about me is I find peace and calm in nature.
Hi, I'm Sonora Ponsic DeLuca. I'm 16 and I live in South Minneapolis. I'm a junior at South High School and I've been in Youth in Power since June. An interesting fact about me is that I was actually born in Wisconsin.
Hi, I'm Layla Bacon. I'm 18. I'm in the 12th grade. I go to Cooper High School. And I've been in Youth in Power for like almost 3 years now. And an interesting fact about me is I run the Youth in Power Instagram.
Hi, my name is Michaela Freeman. I'm 18 and I'm a senior at Cooper High School. And I live in North Minneapolis as well. And this is going to be my 4th year in Youth in Power, and one interesting fact about me is my favorite animals are koalas.
Hi, my name is Jaden Ellington Vassar. I'm a 17-year-old junior at South High School. I live over north, and I've been a part of Youth in Power for about 4 years. An interesting fact about me is I love to travel.
Hi, I'm Leslie Godinez. I'm 16 and I'm a junior at Benilde St. Margaret's. I live over north and I've been in Youth in Power for about a year. And an interesting fact about me is that I play flag football and ultimate frisbee.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot the one thing I was supposed to do was have the questions I'm supposed to answer. And I think they might be on that table right there. The table you put them on. Yeah. Don't pay attention to the man behind the green, what do you call it? The thing from the Wizard of Oz. All right. So, first and foremost, we love to talk about, what brings us to this movement, what makes us excited about this. So I would love to hear from y'all. Why are you passionate about this, environmental justice, the community, this job, and why is this job different than others that you've had?
I am Passionate about environmental justice because it's an actual problem I'm seeing outside, and I'm glad I can use my personal action to take steps to find a solution. Something that Youth Empower gives me is resources, knowledge, and some experience to actually handle and figure it out. And some local projects that we've been doing is the Environmental Justice Fair and selling vegetables in a farmer's market. And in that way, we can have local foods and we can spread the word about environmental justice. And this makes me feel more connected to Minneapolis because I don't go to school here, and this allows me to be closer to my community. And some personal things that Youth Empower gave me is I actually had a conversation with my dad about energy efficiency, and we're talking about LED lights, and we're really just pushing that conversation and pushing the focus on how can we become more environmentally conscious in our everyday lives.
Some reasons I'm passionate about this job and the environmental justice movement is because I'm actually able to see the effects of the climate crisis in my everyday routine. The information and just the stuff we learn in this job, I'm able to see and make real-world connections to my everyday life, which makes me want to continue learning and fighting for a change, because although we didn't ask to inherit these problems and issues, it's ultimately up to us to make a change for our generation and future generations to come. Like Ismail said about spending a lot of time in a suburb, I actually live part-time in Maple Grove and then the other part in Minneapolis. And I've never really felt a connection to Maple Grove, but I've always felt one to Minneapolis. I'm able to see people coming together in Minneapolis and working hard for one another. This job feels more like a family to me, if I'm being honest, than an actual job. I know I can always count on everyone here if I were to ever need anything. And the way that this job works to build a community and make everyone feel safe really just empowers me and makes me so proud to be part of Youth Empower.
I would say I'm passionate about Youth Empower because I've always seen things going on in my community, like on the news and all that other stuff, and I think it taught me what I can do and what I can teach others to help out in my community. And why I think this job is different than others, personally, I think other jobs, like corporate jobs, don't care about you. They don't treat you as an employee or as a person. And I feel like Youth Empower, with everybody and Ollie and Trey, they treat us like family, and I have a lot of respect for everybody here.
Okay, so why I'm passionate about this job is because, like everyone's saying, we're honestly a family, like all of us together. And I've worked corporate jobs, I'm 18, I've had a few jobs so far, and they really don't treat you like a person, like you're just another number punching in. Here you're actually valued and cared for, and like me and Layla and Jaden are graduating, like they're gonna come to our graduation, like I wouldn't get that at any other job, or I wouldn't want them to even come, so like we're really close. And like the things we're learning here are actually like interesting, and they impact us, and they're a part of our communities. Like when I go to work, it's not work, like we literally go there, we learn, we actually have fun, and I'm excited to be there instead of just like working a 9 to 5 or something. Like it's actually enjoyable, and what we're doing is actually impactful.
Like Michaela was saying, everything that we're doing at work is teaching us something, and that we're learning about it. Before I even started this job almost 4 years ago, I wasn't interested in environmental justice because I never saw myself in the videos, in the pictures. You know, you don't see brown girls in the front line of environmental justice. But then when I met Trey and Alia, I was like, okay, what's this? You know, I was like, what's going on? What is this? And they started teaching me and educating me about all the things that are happen a lot of the time to BIPOC. So a lot of these big issues are heavily seen in BIPOC communities. And since I do live over north, it really engaged me because I'm like, I always want to help my community and see a change for the people that look like me. So I started learning about the soil and the air. Like it was said previously, North Minneapolis has the worst air. And I was like, wow, you look around you, I look at my friends, and I'm like, this is impacting me my whole life, and I never knew about it. So by having this job, I'm like, I found my passion, things I want to do for my future, what I want to go to college for, because of this. It's not like another job where you're just a number or you're just clocking in from 9 to 5 or just there to do your work and get the money. It's about more than that. This job is more. It's a family, it's love, creation, it's everything.
Kind of like Jaden was saying, how like I knew there was like a problem going on, but I never like actually understood how like the different degrees that people are affected in. For example, like people obviously in like lower income communities, they suffer more for it. As we've seen, there's like actual statistics, the HERC being one of like the prime examples of how like North Minneapolis has the worst air. We don't see that in places like Edina, Eden Prairie, like like the suburbs. Also being able to learn about everything, like environmental justice, the climate crisis, it's just super, like, it's super fulfilling to like actually get to like understand what's actually going on around the communities of color especially. Also being able to educate our families as well. I know my parents have learned like so much through what I've learned with Analia and Trey. And also myself, like being able to apply that to my everyday life, getting to teach my friends, people at my school, has been like a really rewarding thing from this job. And as like my other colleagues were saying, we're not just a number at Youth Empower. We're a family, and I see like I've gotten to like know everyone like to a more like personal level, and yeah, this is my favorite job ever. Like I love it.
Okay. Well, contrary to popular belief, I'm actually a crier, so I'm gonna really try to not cry, but they make me so proud. So our next question is, how can we make environmental justice and the environmental justice movement more diverse and equitable?
To make EJ more diverse, we could start by teaching them in more diverse communities and having places like community centers that could teach EJ and SJ, and just to have a safe place in general. And to make it more equitable by giving people a chance to have their voices heard, because their voices have power and influence in their communities. Personally, I'm still learning how to have my voice heard, as I'm still learning how to speak in public.
Like I was saying earlier, just for me personally, you don't see a lot of BIPOC in the front lines of environmental justice, but we are the ones that are being affected the most. I feel like the biggest thing that we could do is put more BIPOC in the front lines. So these big issues like asthma or the bad soil or the HERC affecting everything, we have people that look like me, that look like us in the front lines, or young people, because this is our future. This is what we have to continue to see all the time. So why not do that? Also by having the community leaders. There are leaders all throughout the community that still don't know about this type of stuff, still don't know about environmental justice, still don't know about climate change. Why are we not going to them, educating them, so the community can hear from a voice that they trust, you know? We can't have people that just come around and try to educate you, but they're not a voice that you've seen before. They're not a face that you've ever seen. By educating the people that they know, that they can trust, the people in the community, the people that have grown up with us, that's the best way to get it out there. Why aren't the people that I've looked up to since I was little telling me about this? So.
Well, I've learned that self-education is such like a very important part in like being able to be in this like movement, being able to like learn and be able to be behind your ideas and project them like as clearly as you possibly can to those people that like are shut off to like the whole environmental crisis in general. And also being able to listen to others. I feel like sometimes we just think like, oh, they need that or they need that. But in reality, you just have to be able to listen to like what the people need and what they actually like are asking for, and not just assume like what they want, but also to actually listen and actually do what they're asking you to do, and not just like putting them off to the side. Also listen to those affected, especially the global south, which they're learning about environmental justice not because they want to, but because they have to, because like of what they're going through, and that we get the luxury of getting to learn about it because we are interested in it, and not like the global south that is learning because that's their reality and what they're living. Also the diversity. I come from a Mexican background. I'm Mexican American. My parents have a farm, and learning all the things we have here about tilling or like the better ways of agriculture has like really impacted the way my parents have farmed in their farm, as well as being able to like obviously produce food for us, but we also like give out food to our neighbors or other people in the community that we find that like would need it or that would want it. So that's also a very like fulfilling thing to do, especially because the people around our communities don't really have like the knowledge, or they don't really like put in like the time or the work into like doing gardens or farming or whatever. And also I feel like for the diversity point, we should have more like common spaces to hang out, something like this, being able to talk to people that have like the same questions, or that they're trying to navigate the issue together, and be able to do it like as a community.
Anything else? Okay. Well, those were some beautiful answers. I'm so proud of you. So this question is a little bit sticky. But there, like I said, there are many stigmas around young people, around the environmental justice movement in general. So how do we normalize that conversation? I'm constantly asked, how do we engage young people? How do we do this for young people? How do we get more people to show up? But I think it's my microphone that I keep forgetting I'm wearing on my body. So, you know, I'm constantly asked how we do those things. So, how do we normalize the conversation in order to stop the stigma around youth entering the environmental justice movement?
Some stigmas that we're seeing with environmental justice is a lot of people saying that this isn't our problem, and it's not up to us to decide what's going on in the environment. A lot of people don't even care about it, and when people do try to get into the environment, they don't feel included because they don't get to see their representation, like Jaden said. And some ways we can change this is using local diverse representation. For example, in Minneapolis, we have a Pacific demographic, right? We have Somalis, we have Latinos, whites, blacks, and it's important that the people who are being affected in a local area get to see people that represent them. And this will allow more people to enter the changes and solutions that we are approaching. And it is really everyone's problem, right? Everyone faces the impacts of climate change, and there's even people who face it even more because people aren't being responsible. And also, we have data, statistics, and observations to prove that climate change is real, right? You have the hurricane in North Minneapolis. We know what's going on in the East Phillips community, and Line 3 is a new problem that's coming about. And focusing on local problems is the best way to have a global solution, because if we just talk about how the temperature is rising in the world and how a big continent is facing hurricanes and disasters, those are great big problems. They are caused locally, right? Everybody's carbon emissions and pollutions, they then affect the global atmosphere and what we're going through with the ozone layer and that aspect of it. So we really just need more people to be representative and take responsibility and take action in local communities and just empower them.
Before joining Youth in Power, I would always hear discussions about the climate crisis, environmental justice, and different stigmas around the topics, like that it isn't real, it won't affect us, or that there's nothing we can do about it. But I think some ways to stop the stigmas about both youth entering the movement and the movement itself is that we need to find youth who are determined and passionate about the topics of environmental justice and who are willing to fight for a change and make it better for generations to come. I also think that, like Ismail said, we need to be willing to continue looking at data and information, as data is always continuing to grow. So we need to be willing to continue learning so we're able to both teach ourselves and teach others about ways to prevent future crises from happening.
Okay, so like the stigmas that I've heard are that like climate change isn't real or it's a hoax, and like I've heard like a lot of older generations believe that it's not real. But like there's like Isma was saying, like there's data and like statistics about it. Like 98% of scientists like confirm climate change is real. It's actually happening. Like you can like honestly see it. Like our winters are affected, our summers are affected. They're either extremely cold or extremely hot when like they're not supposed to be. Or, like we don't have enough water, obviously, and we have all these lakes, but we're still going through a drought. And like me personally, I used to live in Crystal, and I moved to North Minneapolis when I was in 3rd grade, and I used to be able to run around, play sports, do a lot of things, but now like over the years, my respiratory, like it's really affected. I have to have an inhaler with me at all times, and like I struggle really hard with breathing. Like it's not even like extreme physical activity. I could be walking, I'm like, I need to sit down, drink some water, use my inhaler. Like I struggle with it, and like especially in the summer, like it's really difficult, or just like feeling effects of the pollution and like asthma and stuff from where I live. And like I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, but like I do want it to change, because I don't want to live anywhere else, but I do want it to be better for me and my family and all of us. And I feel like joining this movement, it's more than like just learning about the climate. You learn about so many different things like community and social justice, and you can learn about like income and food. Like so many different things are incorporated in environmental justice than just the climate. And I feel like anybody can join the topic and have something to say about it. Like I teach my parents about what I'm doing at work all the time, and they're like so excited, because I'll be like, I just planted like 20 trees in the neighborhood. Like you wouldn't find that anywhere else. Like my school doesn't do that. I wouldn't find that like working at McDonald's or something. Like you can only find this in like really deep invested jobs that actually care about you and your well-being.
Also, a lot of older generations use the phrase, not in my backyard. But what if we told you it was in your backyard? The things that you think you can do, like, oh, I can plant a garden, but what if it's not soil and it's dirt? What if we don't know the difference? How soil can nurture the fruits and veggies that you're trying to grow and dirt can't? What if we told you when you bring a child into the area, like North Minneapolis, their lungs will start to fail? No one ever talks about those types of things that are in fact in your backyard. But the conversation needs to be started, because everything that's affecting me is affecting you, no matter where you stay. I stay in North Minneapolis, where it's affecting me heavily. You can stay in Edina, Eden Prairie, and it'll still affect you. So everything that's going to be going on, everything that's going on right now is in your backyard.
I'm really trying not to cry. Okay, I'm so proud of them. Okay, so next question is, when young people are put into positions of power, which tends to look like decision-making positions, how and what can we do to shift the way that we come up with solutions so that they are always community-based?
young people are very capable of finding solutions. Like just this morning, I was able to connect with some great people over in Russia, and we use websites like Centennial EO Browser. We had NASA Worldview, we had Google Earth Pro, and I was able to actually find some resources that showed that ice sheets in Western Antarctica are actually decreasing. And those may seem like, okay, like that's very specific, but everybody, we have a platform, we have resources, like we can all connect with people across the country nowadays, and we're really just capable of doing something, right? So to have young people not in this movement is just very inconsiderate, because we have a lot of resources that can actually aid us, and we're motivated, right? We have a whole panel of youth in power right here, motivated to do something in our community and do something within. And I feel like that's very important to say when young people should be in positions of power. And the current people in positions of power haven't been doing well, right? Like we have asthma rates in North Minneapolis. We have problems in East Village community with the environment. And now we're having green zones that aren't being addressed right. And I feel like just pushing the conversation to, we want everybody involved, right? We want teachers, workers, students. We want anybody that can do anything that they can. And yeah, that's really how we can have more young people in positions of power.
Like everybody was saying, we do. As youth, we work with everybody. We just were working with some people in Russia today. But what people fail to realize is that it's our future that's being at stake. Everybody else has gone through their milestones, graduated college, had kids, bought a house, but if we're not able to fix the problem now, how are we gonna make it to the milestones? Everybody has lived their life, traveled the world, had fun, did everything that they could, enjoyed the nature, while our nature is dying. Where everything around us is dying, I'm not gonna say we're next, but the reality is, it could be us next. We want to make it to those milestones, but without solving the problem now and fixing everything that's going on now, how are we gonna make it? How are we gonna make it for our kids, for our grandkids? How are they gonna see the next day, or all the animals? Like, when I first started working at this job, the first thing that caught me in was the zoo animals, things that you see in the wild, won't be there anymore. How are our generations, how are we gonna be able to tell our generations, hey, kids, we didn't do anything when we had the chance? How do you break that to people? If we don't do something, if our generation, the youth now, don't do something, who will? The older people have been in power for a long time, longer than I've been alive, but I still see no changes. And now it's my future at stake. So if they're not gonna do something, I'm gonna have to, because it's my future.
Oh wait, okay. I think that a problem we see a lot with youth and more, it's called wiser people, lack of words, more like wise people, like it's just like the older generations, is that they're closed off to letting the youth actually be involved into the decision makings. They're not allowed, like us youth are not allowed to be in the decision making meetings or whatever. We're just like an afterthought. Like they'll have us in the table, but they won't actually listen to our ideas. They just want to meet a requirement of having a youth in the decision making, but we're not really being part of the solution that they're trying to come up with, which isn't really a solution if they're not involving the youth, which are trying to appeal to more youth. That's also a different point, that us youth have different ideas and we know what other youth are looking for, what will appeal to them, and I feel like if they would let us youth in the decision making, that we would be able to appeal to those youth and not just to the target audience, which has always been just like the older generations, or they just haven't really made like an effort to actually involve everyone just the certain people, which defeats the whole purpose of trying to like get youth into the decision making if they're not actually doing anything or their input isn't listened to. Also, the higher ranking always having more power, like they're always just, youth are just always just looked over. They're not actually seen as another person putting in like effective input into the conversation.
As young people today, in the current context being social media, the climate crisis, COVID-19, we have no other option but to putting the community in the forefront. Putting the community in the forefront to me means, an example for COVID-19, giving out food to people who are struggling during the pandemic, helping out other people because they're struggling. Another example would be the climate crisis. All of us spreading the word on what we know to other people so the climate crisis will stop.
Anyone have anything else they want to add? Whew, okay. We have one more question. How can schools make learning about environmental justice more accessible?
Some ways that I think schools can make learning about environmental justice more accessible is that schools need to be offering courses on the topics of environmental justice as both classes and after-school programs. Learning about environmental justice really hasn't been a thing in my schooling experience. I think the most I've ever learned about it is for a unit back in 9th grade where we learned about fossil fuels and greenhouse gases, but if I'm being completely honest, I don't remember anything from that unit. Also, recently at my school, which is South, we started looking into classes that we're interested in taking next year, and when I was looking at the sheet, I only saw one class that related to environmental justice, and that was an AP environmental science class, and not a lot of kids like taking AP classes just because of other personal reasons. So it doesn't really give much options to youth about learning about these topics. I also think that we need to be offering and promoting these courses in a way that youth will find interesting, which will make them want to come. I actually talked to some people around my school, and some of the things that people said that would make them want to join these programs would be offering them in ways of field trips, hands-on activities, coming up and playing games related to the topics, and also just doing things in different communities where we're actually able to see the effects of the climate crisis, which then will end up making more youth want to attend these classes and programs.
I think, so in my school we have a lot of after school programs or clubs, and one of them I attend is a financing club that we do after school. And in that club we have so many donuts, so many snacks, and we have so many speakers that actually are in the business that go and talk to us and give us statistics and actually let us know about what they're doing, how it's affecting, how like their career, how they started, college, everything. And I'm just like, why can't we have something like this for environmental justice? I've seen my school, they're private Catholic school. They have so many resources, they have so much money that they don't put into actually teaching their students what's valuable. We as students are always asking for courses that will help us in our future, like math, y=mx+b. We're always like, where are we gonna use that? And they try to come up with ideas, or like, oh, you're gonna use that when you're an architect. And I was like, well, I don't wanna be an architect, so like, why is that in the curriculum, or stuff like that that are just not beneficial to one's actual career, or what they want to learn, or what they're passionate about. And I just feel like them having a program that is at least something close to an after school, like the financing club that we have, would be very beneficial for students. And also, as Sonora was saying, they do a really poor job of advertising stuff that has anything to do with like environmental justice or just like anything else because, well, actually, I do not know why. They don't advertise it as extensively as any other program. But I feel like an after-school program at my school would be very beneficial, especially because we do have the resources and they do have the money to pay for stuff like that. And I feel like that knowledge would just help us to apply that in our everyday life to actually work together. Like I said, they have extensive resources, and I feel like if those kids got to learn what we're learning here, they would go and tell their parents, which are loaded, and I'm pretty sure the parents would do something about it, besides just sit there in their rich houses. So.
It's a hard topic to say, but our school system is failing us. It's not the teachers, but it's the system itself. A lot of times they put things into the curriculum, like Leslie was saying, that don't benefit us in the future. We won't be learning it, we won't be using it in our everyday lives, but environmental justice and climate change are our everyday lives. It's happening in everybody's backyard. It's happening right in front of you, right behind you, next to you, that we're not acknowledging. By us, we all have different backgrounds. Most of us go to different schools. By even talking to our teachers that I know that will listen, to put this into our everyday just curriculum, like, okay, let's all have a training. Let me teach you what I know so you can teach others. And that's the simplest way to get everything out there. If I teach you, you teach others, and that's how everything spreads. People fail to realize too that environmental justice and climate change is another form of racism. A lot of people don't see it that way, but things like redlining, right? That's one form of racism, but what's inside of the lines? What's under our ground? What is it, dirt? There's nothing can grow. We plant trees, like Michaela was saying earlier, we plant trees all over Minneapolis, and you can see the drastic difference of the soil that things can live in and grow plants and food to the soil that we can't. Even on Broadway, we planted a tree just around this corner, and the dirt was horrible. It was dirt. It was nothing could grow on it. Those are the things that can be in our core classes, and not just our AP classes that you choose to pick. Climate change is not a choice. It's what's right in front of us. So we need to have those in our core classes because it involves everything, every single thing that we have. Social studies, you can involve it. World sciences, everything can involve climate change because it's in our everyday lives. It's what we see and what we don't see, unfortunately. The air, we can't see the air, but we know something's going on in it. The dirt, I'm guessing not everybody digs and plants a tree every day. I don't either, but when it gets warm, I do. So those types of things, just even about environmental things, can be in every single core class. And once we start educating our teachers and telling them what they don't know, they can teach to their future generations of kids. So when freshman year, when we do learn about fossil fuels and greenhouse gases, it'll stick. It'll stick every single year. You'll learn a little bit more until you know everything.
I agree with literally everything Jaden was saying. Like, our curriculum and our school system is broken. Like, they're not teaching us what we need to know. Like, I've been doing like social studies and history since I want to say like 4th grade, and we basically reiterate the same thing every time. Like, we talk about serious topics, like we talk about what happened to indigenous people in the past and what happened to black people, like slavery and everything. But my teachers will just be like, oh, they were slaves, sorry, and then we just move past it. Like, we don't actually talk about it or talk about like the pain and the trauma that people have felt and they're still feeling today. And I feel like if we, like what Jaden was saying, like if we were learning about environmental justice in our core classes and not just after schools or like elective classes, we would be actually like retaining and absorbing the information instead of, like rushing through a unit, take the test, and then the next unit, and then everything I learned, I couldn't tell you what I actually learned. like an environmental justice class, I feel like should be a new class and should be taught everywhere at a very young age and all the way through like middle school, high school, elementary. And it wouldn't just be about the climate, it would be about agriculture, indigenous practices, community organizing, how to plant your own food, what the importance of knowing how to plant your own foods, and like just planting trees regardless can help. And learning about like, I've been learning about like income disparities and class consciousness. I never knew about that, but like it's something that actually needs to be talked about. I feel like it would be so impactful and I would be so interested if this was offered to me at school and I wouldn't feel like school is like boring or I don't want to know what we're learning, because like I'm in an earth science class and like right now we're learning about space. I mean, I'm not going to space. I don't really want to be an astronaut, so, but like we're learning about like stars. But I feel like we should be learning about the more important things, like everything that environmental justice is.
Let's please give them a round of applause. We have one more answer. I'm so sorry. I'm yours.
So we were talking a lot about school curriculum, and I actually don't go to school in Minneapolis. I go to school in Edina, and some things that we're learning about environmental justice in Edina is we had a whole unit on environments in Spanish, and we had to use all our verb tenses, our conjugations, our vocab into creating a presentation about climate issues in Latin America, and we learned about global warming. And these are opportunities that students in Minneapolis don't get, right? And you get it in Edina. And in Edina, there's a whole student committee on environment. And why is that, right? Like, I feel like Minneapolis deserves the most to have things going on like this because of what is going on in North Minneapolis, right? You have asthma rates in North Minneapolis. South Minneapolis, you have East Hills community, which are going through terrible things. And now you're having Line 3, and now you're having all these problems that Minneapolis is facing, but Edina gets the opportunities, they get the resources, they have the curriculum provided to teach you about the environment when Edina isn't facing those problems to the degree that Minneapolis is. And I feel like there's many engaging ways to teach environmental justice, right? In Spanish class, we had to make an engaging presentation, right? And I was taking notes on countless presentations about the environment. And this all to me, I was focused in class doing this, right? I wanted to be there. And I feel like right now what we're doing in Youth of Power, right? We all want to be here, right? We're all engaged into what we're learning, right? We go in class and we go to work. It sounds like, sometimes it didn't even seem like work because of how focused and engaged in the notes we take and the vocab we're learning. We're learning about permaculture, we're learning about ecosystems, we're learning about everything that has to do with the environment. And this really just caused a divide across a highway, right? Edina and Minneapolis are really facing different things. And it's important that we acknowledge this, and it's important that we know about this, right? So I feel like school curriculum needs to be implemented, and it needs to be implemented fairly in Minnesota.
Thank you. We have, I think, a question from the Zoom world. What makes a community to y'all? Impromptu.
I think a community is where everybody gets along, everybody's respectful to each other, everybody respects each other's beliefs, or like everybody respects. So respect goes around. Where I just lost what I was gonna say. I just think community is a place where everybody should be. Everybody should be accepted in a community. Everybody should be loved. Everybody should enjoy being around each other. That's what I think a community is.
My version of community is a little different. I feel as if a community doesn't have to all agree or all have the same thoughts, because no one is the same, no one came up from the same background. I feel like a community to me is the people around you that understand your differences and appreciate them. Not everybody's gonna have the same thoughts on everything, but it's the love for one another that creates a community. It's how you're gonna support and uplift someone. So if you believe something and I don't believe it, I'm gonna be like, I still appreciate you as a human being, as a person. No matter what you think or how you feel about things, I support you as a human being. Some people don't understand that people have differences. Everybody's different. No one's gonna have the same ideas. If everybody had the same ideas, there would be nothing new. There would be no new creations, no new ideas. But having a community looks like you appreciate everybody that's around you and you understand that everybody's different, but everybody at the end of the day loves each other. Anyone else?
All right, so let's give these wonderful young folks another round of applause, please. I gotta stand up. It is like the biggest honor and blessing for Travion. Want to come out here? Trey has actually been behind the scenes doing sound, so let's give him a little round of applause, please. Not that he asked for it. He's usually, I heard you say earlier, I usually use the mic and not set it up, so he is a wonderfully talented musician and artist. It is just an honor and blessing for us to be in this space with y'all. We learn every day from y'all, so it is about teaching, but we learn from you constantly. So I hope that everyone can take some of the things that they've learned and heard of up here back into your spaces, into your communities, and into the way that you relate to one another and to the planet we stand on. So for the last little bit of time, I think we may have 15, 20 minutes tops,